About 3 years ago, I got really into virtual photography. It's the use of photo mode or camera tools in video games to frame and compose interesting shots. And on my journey through Ghost of Tsushima, I inadvertently froze the frame just as an NPC turned to look at me, and it sparked a kind of recognition in my brain. So I snapped a photo of the moment, and I followed him around for a bit, and I imagined what his life might be like. And then I tried the same thing in other games. I paid extra attention to clothing, character design, behavior patterns that I thought might go unnoticed by the average player. And here's what I learned in Final Fantasy VII Remake launched on the PS4 without a photo mode, but the 2021 PS5 upgrade would go on to add it as a new feature. This was one of the few games where I had the pleasure of trying out both versions, and funnily enough, the PS4 version without a photo mode taught me some things about Midgar's NPCs that instant access to a freeze frame might not have. For instance, there's this creepy girl with some fairly ominous dialogue who's kind of just shuffled away to the background of one of Midgar's parks. Rather than photograph her and sketch a story based on one or two of her lines, I just centered the camera on her, left the recording on, and let her tell her own.
You know, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm sick, so I should be at home. But I sneak out at night a lot.
And it's got this creepy but ultimately sympathetic vibe.
You don't have any friends? Yeah, me neither. I know! We can be friends! Yay, a friend! I'm real glad I decided to come.
If you turn off music, you can also hear the singer's song as an isolated track.
Want an autograph?
You and me, girl, watching and wishing we both belt it out. You got this.
He's alright. So much of 7 Remake's NPC dialogue is focused on the world building of Midgar, and that was the thing that stuck with me on my first playthrough. Characters would act as organic mouthpieces to build out lore and history. You know, anti-Wutai sentiment from those who'd fought in the war.
It's Wutai, isn't it? Let me get my gun!
The construction of Midgar's plates by the very people who would be forced to live in its shadow.
Years ago when I came to Midgar, the plate you see now was only halfway finished.
Really?
Yep, I helped build the rest of it with these two hands.
You could see the sky?
Of course, it was there for the looking.
Upper city fetishists coming down to sightsee in the slums, it was always compelling stuff. But revisiting it with fresh eyes glued to its NPCs, I started to notice a lot more vignettes and character sketches, focused on characters dealing with internal conflict. Small stake stuff. When I got around to the PS5 version, that was the thing I kept in mind. I spent additional time standing around NPCs to make sure I'd hear their full strings of dialogue, because sometimes there would be more after the pauses.
Cactuar gum or chocobo candy? Oh man, how am I supposed to choose?
No need to apologize. Did you sleep well?
Yeah, I had a dream we were together.
Sounds lovely.
I think someone's ready for bed.
During the Sector 7 evacuation, I noticed that there will always be evacuees running the same path, cycling through 3 character models, together creating the sense that the process never ends. I don't love every joke in 7 Remake's background, but I do want to highlight its general sense of humor. Both the writers and the localizers knock it out of the park here. Here's a couple of fun ones I think are worth sharing.
Hey, look at me! I can dance too!
How much did you drink
Just
tonight?
come over here.
can't help it.
I'll buy
It
you
was
a drink.
amazing.
We can talk.
I mean, there's lots of good stuff, but these prices.
That it is. And just between you and me, it's from Wutai.
You mind hurrying it up? I want to serve a few more customers before Reactor 7 blows.
Right.
Shinra invaded Wutai first. It's only natural that they fight back. And they're doing this for the environment. Hard not to sympathize with them.
Hey, you two got a death wish or something? Stop running your mouths. You never know who could be listening.
There's also this neat one in Wall Market. Watch this couple, before and after Cloud cross-dresses.
Baby, you know you're the most beautiful girl in the world.
Oh, stop. No, tell me more. Hey,
I see the way you're looking at her.
I was looking to confirm what I already knew, that there is no one hotter than you.
Oh, babe. You're so sweet saying that with all these people around. There you go again. Stop looking at other girls.
I only do it to compare them with you so I can realize how lucky I am.
You know, I'm starting to think you're kind of an idiot.
She is the most beautiful girl in the world.
Wait a minute! I thought you said that I was the most beautiful girl.
Alright, then you're the most beautiful girl in the world. But she's the most beautiful girl in the entire universe!
You are such an asshole.
I'd like to take this moment to officially declare to you my undying love!
What the hell did I ever see in you?
Rock, paper, scissors! There's this pair who alternates their victories. Maybe I really like bugging Shinra suits, but,
I'm on the phone! I'm on the phone!
Do cats count as NPCs? I'm going to say they do. This cat's head tracks Cloud's movement, so you can make him do funny stuff like this mid-animation.
Chocobo bean popcorn here, shaped like everybody's favorite chocobos. Get them while they're hot!
Sector 7 also has this meta joke mocking fans who argue over Tifa versus Aerith, cleverly disguised as a debate about fashion.
A classic black and white combination never goes out of fashion.
But pink and red are like the go-to cute
What the
color.
hell are those two arguing about?
Slum fashion. As if anyone gives a shit.
The Yuffie DLC adds another version of this in the same spot, this time arguing over Tifa and Jessie.
Drink my sins! Just 500 more, then alas, Jesse out! Destruction and rebirth, the mantra of muscle growth!
But the jokes, the quirks, the nudges and winks are just one small part of Midgar. I appreciated a lot of the more moving vignettes too, like a woman taking in a child who'd become isolated in the aftermath of a disaster.
Hey there, are you alone? Everything's gonna be alright. I'll stay with you, okay?
Where's Daddy?
He'll be back in a little bit.
And where's Brother?
He's with Daddy.
A couple contemplating making money by having one audition to be the local Dawn's bride. Another lamenting the boy with lost potential, who sold his services to the Dawn.
That nice boy who ended up working for Corneo. I used to think he would grow up and run his own shop.
He changed so much after his parents passed away.
These two soldier grunts who go through an entire character arc in the background, forever changed by the horrors they're made to witness. These Shinra employees freaking out about their presentations, or the disconnect between those on the ground and those at Shinra after the plate falls.
We live right by Sector 7, and I keep calling and calling, but I still can't get through.
I heard that all the phone lines are down. It doesn't mean anything.
You sure?
Pretty sure.
The knowledge that even enemy fiends are becoming agitated, more vindictive because of all the bombings, tying us back to the idea that we're hurting the planet in every way.
Monsters have been acting strange since the bombings. Don't go letting your guard down, okay?
These reactor bombings have really spooked the fiend population around here. Just wish they wouldn't take it out on us.
An old lady who gives you the music disc her husband used to jam to. There's even an extended storytime session with some kids, where their teacher tells them about Shinra's mascot stamp. And speaking of kids, one of my favorite new additions to Midgar is the Sector 5 school/orphanage, the Leaf House. In addition to doing a lot for Aerith's character, it's the place you'll want to check in on every time you swing by virtue of its ties to some of the game's other characters.
You know of a club called the Leaf House? I heard that Biggs has put a lot of money into that place.
Club? The Leaf House is an orphanage.
It is?
Yeah, he donates to them because he grew up there.
Here's some students bugging their teacher and waxing poetic about wanting to be like one of our other heroes.
Biggs gave me a bunch of his favorites, and I'm gonna read them all. One day, I want to grow up and be just like Jessie.
Yep, you got it.
If you return here later, you can find the same unnamed teacher's character model doing something else, boosting the illusion that there's at least some consistency in terms of who lives where, who does what. One of the most affecting things also is that the head teacher, Miss Folia, turns up again as a dancer at Wall Market, pulling 2 jobs. This isn't framed as something purely done out of desperation, by the way. Folia has always wanted to be a dancer.
I come here at night to live the dream. I'd appreciate it if you didn't tell the children, okay?
And speaking of Wall Market, I guess this is a good place to add. A lot of the Wall Market NPCs chat about food items like materia pops or chocobo popcorn, wrestle with the photo mode a bit, and you can see that the popcorn really does have vague chocobo shapes. The PS5 photo mode in general is a really welcome update, although I hope they improve the feature significantly in future titles. It's extremely rigid with very limited maneuverability. One hopes the recent PC release has a bit more freedom, with mods now on the table. While we're on the topic of photo mode though, there are things it empowers you to do that you couldn't on PS4. One of my favorites being that you can activate it during flashbacks in cutscenes. These are normally depicted in black and white, but by adjusting photo mode filters, you can actually see them in their original colors. Here's a gander at Elmira's stylish old jacket, paired with young Aerith's aqua-colored childhood dress. It doesn't always work, Leslie's flashbacks won't let you, for instance, but when it does, it's great. Photo mode also lets you bypass the limited camera view when you're in the Shinra building vents. You can zoom out a bit and find that the vents are actually placed between floors, no tricks. Not only can you look down on NPC-filled conference rooms, but also up at the higher level, Hojo's lab. The NPC costumes are simplistic compared to those worn by 7 Remake's major characters, which works for a world like FF15's with a more grounded fashion.
Good hustle out there.
But it can feel a bit weird in 7 Remake at times. That being said, I do appreciate that fashion trends vary between locations. Although you spend minimal time on the city's upper levels, civilians there do have slightly more sophisticated and expensive looking clothing, compared to those down below.
Out here a while. The missus inside?
Yep. What else is new?
What about your husband? Isn't he waiting for you?
How about you go and pull her out?
Because if I do, she'll make me buy her more clothes.
If he wants me, he'll find me.
7 Remake feels like it builds on the foundations of Final Fantasy XV's NPCs in interesting ways. FF15 also had these fun passing conversations, although in their case there definitely was more emphasis on interpersonal vignettes than world building. Like 7 Remake, 15 also debuted without a traditional photo mode back in 2016. But the interesting thing is, it did feature a camera as part of its primary experience at launch. In the original release, your friend Prompto, an NPC party member at the time, would be the one photographing you and the world around you on your travels. Thankfully, later patches gave your player character Noctis his own camera to take his own photos. So I was able to snap a good number of NPCs there too. One thing I appreciate across both games is their inclusion of subtitles for NPC dialogue. This was pretty rare in a lot of games I looked at, but I think it's important for more titles to include it in future. These conversations fill the space of a world, and it would be a step forward in terms of accessibility if everyone had equal access to them, even if the access was optional. People watching without dialogue still has its benefits, of course. You might find 3 people who accompany one another through their entire walk cycle, see them exchange words, and reasonably guess that they're family. You might find super basic animation showing NPCs actually eating their food, which, is kind of an extra mile. Not many people will stand around to see if they do. Even 7 Remake didn't animate this 4 years later.
Man, is this good or what?
It is. Not too salty. Just right.
Yeah, none of those fancy schmancy spices that those snobs in Galden like.
I can't recall having a better meal.
You can find better in Altisha, if you can afford it.
How much are we talking? I'm not made of guild.
One of my favorites is this couple by Golden Key, who playfully splash water at one another. Speaking of Golden, I'd like to highlight this one NPC named Koktura, who works at the hotel as both its receptionist and head chef. There's actually some neat animations of her working the kitchen, and how much of the animation cycle you see varies based on how soon you approach her. Because at that point, she cuts herself off to greet you. But 15 also gave me this project's first bizarre reality check. See, I photographed and wrote about Koktura, but because she was a named character, I had an opportunity to scour the internet for details, or obscure lore I might have missed. And I missed a big one. 1. Background info reveals she's related to one of 15's other characters, and 2. A torn piece of clothing reveals that she may be killed off screen during one of the game's major events. It was kind of disheartening after spending time with her. While 7 Remake and 15 weren't my favorite games to photograph, they were among my favorites to people watch in, and maybe that's why I felt so much for them. Maybe that's why they made me realize I was thinking about NPCs differently now. A lot differently than I once did.
Come to think of it, I haven't seen Aerith around lately.
You don't need to worry about her. I'm sure she's out there doing her part to help the wounded.
And credit where credit is due there, right? Hey! Thanks so much for watching that. This was actually an excerpt from a much longer video, in which I go over even more games and NPCs I photographed in 2021. I've included a link in the description below, along with links to the social media pages where I post my photos. I also make video essays, right here, on YouTube, so if you like my stuff, consider subscribing. Thank you again for sticking around, and I'll see you, or I guess you'll see me, in the next one.